Hey there, this is Real Talk Baseball. I'm Carlos Baseball, and with me is Will Power, and of course, we have a guest on our show for the second edition of Fantasy Baseball. Tony, what's up, dude? How's it going?
How's it going, everyone?
Thanks for joining us, dude. Tony has won 6 championships in 6 years. Of course, he's played a lot of fantasy baseball with different leagues, not just one league every year. You know, he likes to play fantasy baseball on Yahoo Sports, right? And then you do the fantasy baseball.
Yeah. I do Yahoo and ESPN.
See, there you go. So it's not just, he just doesn't play one fantasy league and then he just gets to 6 in 6 years. I mean, this guy is pretty good. As we seen Will on the last show, he talked about how many championships he won. And, these guys talk a lot of crap to each other, which is pretty fun to see. So that's why, when Walter was here last week on our show, he Will talks a lot of crap to him too. And then this guy right here, Tony, is one of the main ones that talks a lot of crap to him. So it's fun, dude. We just want to get through this and talk about the 2021 season. How are you going to prepare for it? Is it something that you're looking forward to? We don't know how long the season's going to be, and free agents, dude. We don't know the free agents. There hasn't been a lot of movement lately. There's been some, but not a lot. Talk to me about that, Will.
Well, like you were asking, preparing for the 2021 season, it's really hard because the players that we saw in the 2020 season, it was such a short sample size, a real small sample size. So it's really hard to know if a guy like Shane Bieber is still going to be like a Cy Young competitor next season. Same thing with Trevor Bauer. He's still going to be like, a Cy Young competitor next season. And, then you go over to the MVPs, Freddy Freeman and Jose Abreu. Both of them are amazing athletes, but Abreu, he's on the wrong side of 30. Freeman, he's always been, a great hitter, great defender, but he just broke out like crazy last season. We've never seen him that good before. He's always had a really good stroke, but we haven't seen the power come from him. This past season was finally the time, in a regular season, I think he would have been on pace for somewhere around like 50 home runs, which is not very Freddie Freeman-like. He's usually a guy that's more like 30 to 35 maybe. Yeah. So it's really hard to know if we're going to get that same Freddie Freeman for, next season. He might have turned it on because he really wanted to, show what the Braves can do. They had the most runs throughout the whole season compared to any other team, and he was a major part of that. So, I for me personally, I do have him in my top 12, so I would pick him in the first round. I know a lot of people are probably going to be picking him in the top 5 just because of this past season. I don't have him in my top 5 though. So
you don't have him top 5. You just have him on your list of top 12, but you don't have him one of your first ones to go because you're like, there's other first basemen that are still there, even though Freeman, they have taken Freeman away from the list, right? So what about you, Tony? How are you going to prepare for this 2021 season? And how did that, 2020, like Will said, it's a short
sample.
It's a short.
Yeah, I would probably agree with a lot of things Will just said. I definitely wouldn't put Freeman in my top 5, especially when there's such a that position is pretty deep. Most of those guys are pretty much power hitters. You can you can wait off on the first base. Yeah. Definitely not a top 5. Probably put him down in probably top 15 and probably just hitting that 15 mark for me. As far as how I would prepare and the off-season trades and things like that, I think more than likely a lot of these big names that are going to be in the free agency market, probably we won't hear about them towards the beginning of the season, making them. I feel like it's going to be a pretty slow winter. No one's going to be getting picked up, especially before we even know how many games they're going to be playing. Will fans be attending? I feel like that ultimately is going to end up screwing up a lot of these players that deserve like a big payday, like Trevor Bauer or sad to say, Springer. I don't like talking about the dude. But I feel like it's going to mess it up for them. They had pretty good 2020 seasons. It was a short sample. So who knows what to expect next season. Christian Yelich fell off. So where do you put him? Does he even hit the top 15?
Yeah.
There's so many questions.
Yeah. And it sucks, right? Because you had the small sample in the 60 games. And we saw with Tatis started on fire. He was really good. He was tearing it up. And whoever had him in the first,
I probably add
games,
him to my top 5.
Yeah, 40 games, he was pretty good. And then the last 20 or last 15, he kind of fell off. And that's what kind of messed up his MVP season, right? And you as a fantasy, team, you have your team and you have him, one of your top players, and he's not producing. Do you drop this type of player in that type of season, or do you keep rolling with him and then hoping he breaks off of that slump?
Yeah, you definitely don't drop him. If anything, try to move him for another piece. You see where you may be lacking in a position. Starting pitching is almost key on every team. So someone like Fernando Tatis is a big bargaining chip. He's just a carrot dangling for another. I would say almost Shane Bieber. They're almost hand in hand. You just throw another bat in there or whatever.
Yeah.
Or a reliever or something. Yeah, I agree with you when it comes to you definitely don't drop a guy like that. And I think the main reason for me is because he's a shortstop. If he was an outfielder and he started messing up the way that he does, there's a ton of outfielders out there that you could pick up that produce on a weekly basis. You just pick up the hot bat. So when it comes to an outfielder in a 3 outfielder league, I would probably drop the outfielder depending on who it was. If it's Christian Yelich, if it's Cody Bellinger, I'm not dropping those guys. But if it's like Santander from the Orioles, who was on a tear in the beginning of the season, if he starts dropping off, of course I'm going to drop that guy. I could easily go out and just pick up a Cole Calhoun or pretty much anyone that's still left out there on the free agent list, in Yahoo or ESPN, whatever platform you play on. So Tony, most of the time you play in points leagues, right? So yes. The way that you do kind of your rankings, you do them according to a points leagues format, opposed to the head-to-head categories format, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I go off of the just points, who's the top producer.
And usually in points league, it's the pitchers that are more valuable, right?
Yes and no. I almost feel like, especially in this day and age in baseball, pitchers can get hurt. Not necessarily hurt an injury, but I'm just saying runs wise. These hitters are who isn't a power hitter nowadays? Yeah,
that's true.
And I honestly feel like pitchers. I always grab at least 2 pitchers in my first 5 rounds. That's how I normally try to stack it. You want I would say one of the top 5 pitchers. I that's what I always try to get, at least.
Yeah.
I would definitely prefer hitters over pitchers, just because of as I mentioned, pitchers can rack up home runs. That's negative. Any run, negative. Walk, negative. As opposed to a hitter who doesn't really. The only negative is when they strike out. They hit into a double play, doesn't matter. Does it come through in a clutch position? Doesn't matter. A lot of those things. And for me, I normally tend to go with bigger names for batters, just because of that safety net. Because even though if you have Shane Bieber, he had an awesome season, but I'm pretty sure there was probably a game where he probably gave up 4 runs, and he ended up with 0. And costing you, maybe the week or just that day or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's actually one of the things that I don't like about points leagues, because you could have all your hitters doing great for the whole week, and then you have one pitcher and he'll get blown up in the first inning, give up 5 runs, and then at the end of it, he's charged with the loss, which gives him another -5 or -3, depending on the settings. And then at the end of the game, he has a -20 something. And at the end of the week, when you calculate all your points together, you just lost the week by 10 points just because of that one pitcher.
Yeah.
So I know in points leagues you have a number of starts you can do, right? You could have it 12 or 14.
That really depends on the commissioner.
Yeah.
So the commissioner usually does the settings. He could either do unlimited or however many he wants to allow for each team.
Yeah.
So with that
but
rule-
the default is 12. Sorry.
Yeah. So with that rule, is it better to have like you just said, the default is 12? Is it better to have have that number that preset already there for you guys, so you guys can actually have that, you know how to line up your pitchers and not be like, oh man, I'm gonna have to pick up 5 pitchers here on Sunday so I can beat this guy. I'm down by a lot of points. And
I
do you
don't
think that's
necessarily
fair?
think it's any better or worse. I just think that you have to change your strategy depending on what the settings are. Like we just talked in our last episode about, you have to make sure you know what the settings are before you do your draft.
Yeah.
Because towards the end of the draft, if you start drafting like a bunch of pitchers as opposed to like bench hitters, then you could be drafting these guys that, maybe could have a good start once in a while against a team like the Orioles or against a team like the Giants that just don't produce that well. But it's once you get past like the top like 3 tiers of pitchers, you have like the super aces, the aces, and then like the number 2s.
Yeah.
There are certain like number 3, 4s, and 5s that are really hard to hold on to for the whole season. Or you might even just bench them for a week, maybe 2 weeks, or kind of off and on depending on who they're playing. Because if I have a pitcher going, and let's say it's like John Lester, right, who does pretty good against the Cardinals, he does good against the Brewers, but then all of a sudden they play an interleague game and he's playing against the Yankees, I'm sitting them down. I don't trust him against the Yankees lineup or like the Dodgers lineup or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's all about strategy when it comes to how many starts you can have throughout the whole week. But if you have unlimited starts, then I'm starting everybody,
Yeah.
I got
just
you.
hoping for the best.
Yeah, I got you. So I think it's better. I don't know. We'll talk to the commissioner on this league and see what we do, and hopefully we can have him on the show. Will too. And, now that we're talking about commissioners, we can have a commissioner on here and just get on him. We can get on him. Hey, so look, I know there was a question that popped up in my head as soon as you guys said something that said pitchers. So you know how in the World Series we all saw the Snell. Everybody, we're like, what the hell? Why are they taking him out so early? He was hitting through the 3rd time through the lineup, right?
Yeah.
And pitchers are getting tested by that time in this time and age, right? So is that an effect? Does that take an effect on your picking your players in this 2021? Because we saw it in 2020. Now this 2021, we're going to see this more. We're going to see pitchers go 4 innings, 5 innings, maybe even 6. And I think 6 is going to be the stretch now for these pitchers, for starting pitchers. Are you guys going to be looking for that? Or are you guys going to be looking for relievers? Or how are you guys going to be looking for those pitchers? And Will, go ahead. I'm gonna put you on the spot.
So that definitely has a huge effect on fantasy. So in a traditional points league, it affects it, but not as much, I think, as in categories leagues, because every inning that a pitcher throws, I think it's 1 point per out, and depending on if it's a strikeout, then you get another point. Negative points for walks and hits, and then more points for the strikeouts or like a complete inning. At the end of the inning, I believe if it's 3 strikeouts and 3 outs, then it's 6 points. You get a 1 point for each out and 1 point for each strikeout. Which would it helps at the end for longevity purposes. So a Blake Snell like him that usually notoriously only goes about 5 innings, maybe 6. He's definitely a good one to pick up in a points league. I think that he will probably still get the win, because the Rays hitting, they're doing pretty good. They showed last season. That also depends on if he's getting traded, because there's trade talks right now about Blake Snell. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. But when it comes to a categories league, there's usually one category called quality starts. A quality start is when a pitcher goes 6 full innings and allows less than or 3 runs or less, 3 earned runs or less. Yeah. So if you have a guy like Blake Snell that is only throwing 5 innings, that's one category that you're pretty much tanking on for the whole season from that player. once in a while he'll probably go 6 innings or maybe a little bit more. But we already know that Kevin Cash, the Rays manager, he's the type of guy that doesn't like his starting pitchers, to go a third time through the order. So most of their starting pitchers are not going to be going to the end of the 6th inning. So guys like Blake Snell, Charlie Morton last season, all their starting pitchers, I kind of shy away from that. It also depends on who the players that are surrounding him. If there's another pitcher that like a Jack Flaherty, right, who is very similar to to Blake Snell, I would personally rather have Jack Flaherty. I don't think he's as good as Blake Snell, but he's the type of guy that's going to go 6-7 innings rather than Blake Snell that goes 5, maybe 6.
What was that, Tony? I saw you go like, what was that, man?
I just think Blake Snell is probably a little bit better. But I also agreed with him as opposed to his longevity or how deep into the game he can go. Yeah. I personally don't look at that. I mainly, what I look for in my pitchers, I don't really care about innings. What I like is strikeouts. That's what I like to look into. Maybe Will, just because he plays more in the category leagues, that's something that he puts into his strategy. But as far as points league goes, innings are good, but strikeouts are even better. Definitely keeping the run count low is really good too. I probably don't like either one of them. I wouldn't put them on my team just because they do get hurt a lot. Like Flaherty, there's so many times where he had a good outing up into the 5th, and you're just like, oh, please sit him down. I'm sure a lot of players or people, look at their players and I'm just like, they're thinking the same thing, like, just sit him down already. Like Kershaw, like during the postseason, everybody's thinking the same thing. Okay, he's done his job, sit him down. But as far as the fantasy goes, I don't look at innings too much. I do look at strikeouts. Okay. And that's where my strategy play comes.
That's good. That's good to know though. Like you're looking at points leagues and you're looking at what is it, average, and you're looking head to head, right? So
head-to-head categories. So the normal categories, usually it's a 5x5, meaning 5 categories for hitting, 5 categories for pitching. Okay. So pitching, you have strikeouts, wins, ERA, WHIP, quality starts, and you can pick up to, I think, like 15 different categories in pitching. So there's like K9, BB9. There's a bunch of other, analytics type of categories that you can pick, but those are pretty much like the basic 5.
Yeah, and that's good though. That's good to know. We're getting the perspective of 2 sides of the league, 3 sides, 4 sides. We're doing all of it, which is really cool because we want to get people to watch this video because when we talk fantasy, we're not just talking about points league. We're not just talking about categories. And that's the good thing about this conversation that we're having. You're not just throwing Will, like you do categories. Your league is categories, and when you join our league, it's points. It's a points category, and I'm pretty sure it's a little different. Both of them are a little different, right? You have a different strategy than Tony does. Tony has a different strategy when he plays. Like we were talking before the show started, we said fantasy football, you get your lineup one day, you can get it done. You're done with it. And we were talking about the simplicity of when it's a points league, you don't have to really look at averages and stuff like that. But in the categories, how long does it take you to get ready for that? Well, like I know you have to look at batting averages. You got to look at lefty righty matchups. Is that like something you do on a daily basis, or you're doing it? Yeah, or you're doing it.
So that's one of the things that I love about the Yahoo Fantasy Baseball app is because when you click on a batter, it'll tell you what his projected value is for the day, depending on who he's facing, which pitcher he's facing, which starting pitcher he's facing. So it goes on a stars like guideline. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 stars. So a guy like Mike Trout, he always has all 5 stars already, lit up. So he doesn't really have any weaknesses in his game. He's a constant 300 hitter. It doesn't matter who the pitcher is. He'll home run off of anybody. He'll get a base hit off of anybody. He'll walk off of anybody. He has 10, 15 pitch at bats all the time. So that's the type of guy that you don't have to look at his daily matchup. But then on the other hand, if you look at like a Cody Bellinger, right? Yeah. Cody Bellinger does really good against right-handed pitchers. So against like a Max Scherzer, he probably has like a 3.5 or 4 stars. But then against a guy like who's like the main lefty?
We can say Snell, man.
Yeah, let's say Blake Snell, right? Blake Snell, he's probably only going to have like 2 stars against a guy like that. Now, that's not saying that he's not going to do good against them, because hitters, they have their hot streaks and cold streaks, and sometimes when a batter's hot, it doesn't matter who the pitcher is, he's going to tee off.
Yeah.
And so that's something that helps me throughout the season. That's why I prefer the Yahoo Fantasy app. When I do ESPN fantasy leagues, I actually download the Yahoo app also, so that way I can still just go back and check that player on other sites, which I also keep up with Bleacher Report. I also keep up with Fangraphs and Baseball Reference and a bunch of different websites, just to look at how they do against matchups. And I do the same thing with pitchers, because pitchers, Yahoo also does the star categorizing with pitchers. So it'll show like Blake Snell versus the Dodgers, let's say, and it'll show you how many stars that he has, and it'll say like 3.5 stars because the Dodgers have a heavy righty lineup, and righties usually do good against Blake Snell, or because the Dodgers just have a bunch of hot bats, or something like that. Yeah. So that's one of the main things that I do when I'm trying to decide if I'm going to start the guy for the day or not.
Gotcha. That's crazy. Like I didn't think all that work needed to be put in on.
Hey, that's how you win, man.
That's a lot of work.
It's true.
I already gave up to half of your conversation. I'm like, no, I don't think that league's for me. Like, I love points, and then I'm like, points, that's it. I set my lineup and I'm ready. Look, because I do fantasy football, and I did the fantasy baseball first before I did the fantasy football, and it's not the same. Like, a lot of people's like, oh yeah, football is the greatest. Like, okay, I understand, because you like the aggressiveness of the sport and you like seeing football, but football's only 17 weeks, 16 games, and then this
day a week.
Yeah, this year with COVID, it's a little strange on the football. I didn't feel it as much. I'm not even making playoffs because I didn't even pay attention, to be honest. But every year I make playoffs.
I love players like you. Easy money.
Exactly, man. They're taking my money. God damn it. So, like with football, I did it. It's fun to a certain extent. I'm just doing it because I'm so used to the baseball one, when you're doing it every day and you're like checking on players, and you're like, oh, this player's not playing, I need to pick some player up, I need to go ahead and do that. And in football, you don't have that like on an everyday thing. You see the status report, you see the injury list, he might not play, but then game time comes, he's playing already,
Yeah.
So that's the difference. And then going back to the points league, is it harder to drop a player when once you kind of fall in love with this player, and you're like, oh man, I like this player and I want to keep him, and I don't want to drop him, I want to trade him? What goes through your head to not drop him, and even though he's not doing that good? Like, I'm one of those persons that holds on to players even though they're not doing good, and I'm like, yeah, he's gonna catch up. What's the trigger point? What's the one that tells you trade him or let him go and pick someone else? Tony.
Oh, that's a really hard question. It really depends on the type of season they're having, the name you're talking about, because like anybody in the probably first 5 rounds for me, I probably wouldn't never drop. It's probably really hard to just be like, you know what, I'm giving up, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm done with this guy.
Yeah.
There's been a few players, I'm sure we've all been through that same scenario. We're just like, nope, I don't care if it's, Cody Bellinger. I probably felt like that a few times, maybe last season or the season before that. Well, not the last season, because with the 2 seasons ago, because he was like
Jose Ramirez is one of those also.
Yeah. Good comparison right there. Definitely like this last season, he was pretty solid.
Oh yeah, he was in the MVP voting.
Yeah, that's to my points exactly. Cody Bellinger, 2 seasons ago was the MVP, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was MVP.
Yeah. And this last season, he kind of just fell off. He was a 200 hitter. I don't think he ever even hit like 280 or even close to 300. And like I said, I felt like dropping him a few times, and then I tried to get something in return for him a few times as well, and it just didn't work because people saw the same thing I was seeing. It's just that he wasn't connecting. I'm sure whoever picked up Yelich last season was in the same scenario, where they wanted to drop him, but you just can't, because it's stupid. You'll feel so dumb when you drop him, and the following week, whoever picked him up, like this guy just starts killing it.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. I would say like I said earlier, if it's in my top 5 rounds, I probably wouldn't drop them and look for trading. Anything lower than that, you're probably in the safe or in the clear to drop them. And if it doesn't work out or does work out, good, But you should be safe as long as it's not too far down. Like if it's the top 50, top 60, I wouldn't drop them.
You wouldn't drop the player?
No, it really all depends on the name and the type of season they're having.
Yeah. I agree completely. The only players that I am willing to drop pretty easy are closers. And that's because there are so many closers that we have no idea how long they're actually going to be the closer. Like I can probably name maybe 5 closers that will not lose their job. But then pretty much every other one for all the other 25 teams, there's always a backup that's ready and willing to take their place at the closer position. So, a guy like Chapman, you're not going to drop him. No one's taking his spot. Or
taking him in the first round.
All right, yeah. Wait. Well, before you, I'm gonna have to do that to Tony, man. The reason why we're laughing is because the first season that we invited Tony to be a part of the league,
my first season.
Chapman.
Explain that too, though.
I know, that's what I said. It was your first season. I had just texted him and told him, "Hey, Tony, can you hook us up? Can you fill in for this last slot?" And he's like, "Yep, I could do it." So he came over, not knowing what was going on. He was like, "What is this, fantasy baseball?" Like, okay, what do I do? And everybody was telling him what to do and stuff like that. His first pick was Chapman.
Closer in the first round.
Yeah, the first round.
Was he with the Cubs at that time, or was he still with the Reds?
I think he was still with the Reds.
The Reds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was epic. It was, but I feel like that's kind of what made me become a better fantasy manager, I guess. Just trying to get redemption for that.
Yeah. You definitely learn from your own mistakes.
Yes.
Because you pay for the whole season.
Yeah, you do pay for the whole season. If you don't, I'm looking for you. Like, give me your money. We want your money. That's what I'm doing in football. I'm giving them my money. I'm like, no, don't come looking for me.
Leave me alone.
But yeah, you learn from your mistakes and you keep rolling and you keep, Will, when he first started, he started playing like he kind of had a sense of what was going on. He picked up a lot of Dodgers. Because that's what he knew. Like, that's what we know. We're from LA, we know those players. And it's not, that was the second year we had the fantasy baseball, Will. So we were not pros either. We didn't know what was going on. Like, we were just picking players too. And most of us were picking Dodger players, thinking that Dodger players are the best players in and it's not. There's more players than just Dodger players, right?
Yeah.
In your hometown, yeah.
So from that point to now, it's like, you guys have become like the elite on any fantasy baseball leagues. Like I know like now I've made playoffs before. If we start this season, because we didn't do one last year or the year before, but I know if we talk to the commission, we get this year rolling again for 2021, I know I wouldn't even make playoffs because half of those guys are going to keep playing, and they've been getting better as the seasons have been passing and has been going, because they've been doing their own thing too, like you guys. And some of you guys start your own leagues and you guys decide like, oh, I'm just going to do my own rules and do my own thing. and you guys get better as you guys keep going. And that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. You learn, just like you learn in baseball how to play the game, you're learning as to be a coach and to be a manager of your own little team, which is pretty fun, right? It's really fun. Yeah. So the whole thing with fantasy baseball, and hopefully for those new listeners or someone that hasn't tried that fantasy baseball, like, it's really fun. You get to, like, you know, talk a lot of crap with your friends, you know, like, you know, you're constantly on that chat every day. And if, like, Tony is one of them that likes to start up, you know, a conversation, and not a nice one too. So Will, I know you and Will had some run-ins together. Like, you know, I don't think Tony knew it was Will at the point.
Yeah. Right? I probably wouldn't have been talking all that smack if I knew who it was. So, like a keyboard warrior, you know?
Yeah.
It's only on Facebook or whatever, you know.
It keeps the season interesting, though. You know, it's like when you start talking smack, you know, whether you take it seriously or not, it gets you more involved in the actual game. You know, you want to make sure, like, oh man, I got to set my alarm for 1:00 in the morning so that way I can make sure I pick up this player. You know,
it's
there
so
were too
true.
many times where I had
How
to
many
do
times?
That.
Oh man, really?
Yeah,
man.
Do you want to win?
Exactly. If you want to win, you got to make sure that when the next day starts, you are like the first guy on there to click add on that player, because you know there's guys, there's team owners for the league that drop a certain player that because they don't know what the hell they're doing, and you see them on waivers and it's for 3 days. So you know, when that third day finally hits, you want to be the first one to be able to snatch him up, unless someone already claimed him on waivers, you know. But you know, then you're kind of SOL. But there's a lot of times where you definitely want to try to be the first one to get a certain player, and the only way to do that is waking up in the middle of the night when Yahoo's day restarts over, or ESPN's day starts over, you know.
Yeah, there's been countless sleepless nights for me where I would just wake up at 1, and then sometimes it doesn't even, like, it really depends on the timing, because sometimes it's like 1:15 or 1:17 or 1:23. And sometimes it's like, I'm going to sleep, and you wake up and like he's gone.
Yeah,
you know? Yeah. So it really, and there's always that one guy that doesn't know what they're doing, you know, just like I was the first season picking up Aroldis Chapman. You know, so there's one manager that always like drops one either really amazing player or like run of the mill who still has a lot to offer. And sometimes that's what makes and breaks a team. You know, you can be looking at a player that halfway through the season is having a good, like Santander, you mentioned him earlier. I picked him up when he was just hitting that incline or you know, doing what he was gonna do, because he had an amazing season. I actually ended up trading him. I did Blackman and Santander for Trout.
No way.
Believe that? You guys believe that?
Whoever gave up Trout is a moron. Don't tell him I said that.
Dude, that's a really good pickup. I know you've had a lot. Like, this guy has a lot of trades. Like, he's always on there. Like,
yeah,
this.
It's because you just gotta find where people need like assistance. You know, what kind of holes do they have? And I saw him, and he needed outfielders. He only had Trout, and everybody else was like probably like the lower tier, probably like 100 or lower, or even lower than that. So, you know, it was kind of like a carrot dangling in front of him, like Blackman and Santander, who's been having an amazing season, you know, for Trout, and he didn't have an awesome season. He was solid, but I wouldn't say Trout had one of his best seasons.
He was solid. He's one of the top players, and for 60 games, he wasn't that bad. He was okay. He was an MVP talk, so that's a good thing.
Well, didn't he fall off the top 5? I think
he did.
Is he still top 5 this coming season?
Well, because of that's the thing. Like, I think the season, because it was so short. I don't know if you should believe that you know, the top 5 or top 6 or top 10. Sorry, like I don't know how much are people going to dive into that and actually make their picks on those statistics, because
and also it's because he plays for the Angels. You know, and when you have a lineup like the Angels do, you're not going to get a lot of RBIs. You're not going to score that many runs. It's not the Yankees. It's not the Dodgers. It's the Angels. And, you know, when all their guys are healthy and, you know, they make, you know, good pickups and stuff like that, you know, that's cool. But they just lost Andrelton Simmons. They lost Cole Calhoun a couple seasons ago. And it's hard for the best player in baseball to really get ahead of so many other outfielders and other players in general, just because, you know, he plays on a crappy team. It sucks for him. But
it sucks for him, but hey, we talk baseball, we talk fantasy baseball. Will, thank you. Like, it was a lot of good advice. Tony, thank you for being on the show, dude. Like, we really love your expertise, and Will has a lot of expertise too. No, seriously, it's really good information that you guys are dropping. Like, fantasy players will actually really appreciate if we put this video out and have them, you know, see it, like it, subscribe it, see us on Instagram, Facebook. We don't have Facebook. Damn, why do I keep saying Facebook? TikTok, and what do you call Twitter? So I'm Carlos Baseball. This is Will Power. Tony, special guest. See you guys.
See you guys.